The Early Weigh-In podcast is back. Staying at the Apex this week for UFC Vegas 111. Lost a lot of fights this week, but we're still up to 12. One of these got rebooked here in our main event. Looking at Gabriel Bonfim taking on Randy Brown. Another not so big main event, but another one I think we could see end and finish here. And then co-main event, we got flyweights Matt Schnell taking on the tough winner, Joseph Morales. Another one, probably ends and finish, man. Excited to get into these fights here with you. As always, transparency, recapping last week. Roller coaster night for your boy over here, man. I start 2 units in the hole, losing Carnelosi and Phil Rowe dog shots. Managed to battle my way back, hitting Timothy Kwamba for 1.3 units, hitting Jeremiah Wells underdog for 1.18 units, and then hitting a unit on the Radke Fronta fight doesn't go the distance. So riding into our co-main with 2 units on Ante Delija, up a unit and a half. Think I'm about to hit 3.5 units with the finish. Then I'm thinking it's going to be a no contest back to my 1.5 units just for him to restart it after he's adrenaline dumped, get knocked out. Finished minus 0.52 units, man. One of many things that happened last Saturday that I won't get into, but felt like I had the reads and should have been a positive night. But here I set minus 0.5 units, looking to get that back this week, man. Not the smallest loss, but a bit salty about it. How'd your week finish up?
Yeah, so similar story. I would have won if Delja fight would have been called like it should have, or at least just been a no contest. It was tough. Had 2 units on him at minus 105. One of the biggest bets of the year where it was Timmy Kwamba at 4 units at like minus 110 combined. And I won, just under 4 units on that. But then I ended up giving back some units. Bet Cedriquez dumbass against Dante Johnson, and he, did his thing, was looking to tap before the choke was even locked in. David Onama, first time he got tapped, it looked like his controller shut off, and he just could never recover. I'd love to see that fight played out, and I feel like still plus 115 is a decent bet. I just think he had more paths to victory, and it just happened that Steve Garcia found his one path to victory on that night. And then let's see, Ariana Carnelosi, I had 2 units on her. I thought it was 1-1 going into the third. She just had to stay on her feet. But after the scorecards came out, it looks like I was going to get screwed on that as well. So honestly, glad I didn't have to sweat it out on the decision. And then Dolgarian wins by decision at plus 280. I don't know, man. I think he owes me a unit for sure, but looked like he had gotten real deep on that takedown, and that he could have rode out some top position, and I think he could have done that for 15 minutes. But something was up with that fight for sure. So minus 3.45 units. Again, if Delja would have won, it would have been a positive night for me as well. So it's just one of those. There's variance in MMA. The most confident bet that I had on the night, I did win. So I got there's a silver lining to this, even though it was a losing card. Looking to get back on track this week, where we start off in I think it's a catch weight actually, 195 pounds. Jackson McVeigh taking on Zachary Reese. I've bet Zachary Reese in a lot of his fights. I think that he's a cold-blooded killer for about 2.5 minutes, and then he really starts to tail off. With the tendencies of both of these fighters, I think that it's going to be fireworks. That under 1.5, I expect to be juiced, and I do expect it to hit. Maybe a fight ends by sub, but even then, I wouldn't be surprised if that's sitting at like minus 200. Right. Both these guys ready to wrap up a neck. I've seen Jackson McVeigh shoot for a takedown from like 12 feet out. So, I think it's going to be there to be hit, but both of them pretty low level. You know what you're getting into if you risk money on this type of fight. Probably a lot of variance, so I'm not necessarily looking to bet a side, but I do think that there's violence at least in this fight, and that somebody quits before the halfway point of the fight. So I'm on the under, probably Zachary Reese, but just physicality. I think Jackson's kind of noodly, and Zachary Reese is at least like a unit. So I think that he gets it done.
Yeah, I agree, man. Reese, just like McVeigh, pretty early finish or bust type of fighter, but I still feel like in his UFC run, he's shown me so much more potential. I think he's a way better striker. Probably the better submission artist as well. I think the Dante Johnson fight might have been a little bit tougher, but I do think this is probably even harder than the Robert Valentine fight, who I was pretty big on to get through Jackson McVeigh this week. McVeigh is sub, or I don't want to say just sub or bust, but round one or bust, man. 5 of his 6 wins are under 1.5 minutes, not rounds. This guy starts hot. Even in the Bruno Silva fight, I don't want to say he gets his position, but he briefly found his way to the back and things for a second before he slipped off. Like you said, long, noodly, but I don't know. He showed me nothing to make me think that I think he can go a full 15. Shown me nothing that I think he can survive the power and the striking of Zachary Reese. I don't think too highly of McVeigh. I think he gets put away, and I think Zach Reese, round one, probably how it goes down, and I expect Reese to open up probably like a 3-1 favorite, even on short notice here. One of the better fights of the card, man. Sitting second fight of the night, we've got Miles Johns taking on Daniel Marcos. Both these guys have been in camp to fight, but both lost their opponents, so it is considered a short notice matchup for the both. So it makes me a little bit weary wanting to pick a side here. Johns, I don't think the guy's a bad fighter. I really think he's skilled everywhere. I just kind of feel like he gets in his own way. Sometimes he doesn't wrestle when he should wrestle, doesn't really throw the volume and box when he should, doesn't push the pace. But I think he's good everywhere, man. If he could up that volume, I think in the pocket he hits harder. I think he can mix things up. He's just not very dangerous, man. Doesn't separate. And again, that's part of what I'm saying, how I kind of feel like he gets in his way. We're on the Marcos side. He kind of, I don't want to say put the stamp on things more, but he does, man. He's a little bit more intentional with his shots, has a really good jab, really good teep kick. I think at the range that Marcos wants to keep this fight at, he could really wear on Johns. But if Johns wants to make this a dirty fight, wants to close the distance, wants to push the pace, neither one of them's gas tank is great, but I think I kind of favor the gas tank of Miles Johns. I think round 3 probably goes to Miles Johns, who can push a better pace. He might be down 2 rounds, because I do think Marcos is a sharper guy. So I've battled back and forth all week on this one. I'm gonna go Miles Johns, man. I'm gonna take. I definitely think at plus 150, this fight's dog or pass. So give me Miles Johns as the guy who I think can mix it up a little bit more. Yeah.
One of us are going to be completely wrong. I mean, I'm seeing this fight kind of almost the exact opposite, where I think Johns will probably win early, but I feel like Marcos is going to be the one who pushes the pace, and I'm looking to bet him round 3 plus 2,000 on FanDuel. I think, like you said, it's kind of a short notice fight for both guys, but I feel like Marcos is the guy who's staying in a little bit better shape out of the out of fight camp, and he just, generally speaking, he seems to keep a pretty consistent pace throughout the fight. Miles John, he's kind of known to kind of tail off if he doesn't dominate early. And I don't think that Marcos is somebody who's just going to sit back and, let him win positions to be able to catch his breath in the last round. And I think he starts to wear on him. So yeah, I'm on Marcos late, Marcos by decision, something like that. But yeah, I think that he should start taking over around the halfway point, but I guess we will see.
Yeah.
Again, I'm saying this like I'm not only putting a quarter unit on Marcos round 3, but that is how I see the fight going. Moving on to the strawweight division, we have Tisha Pennington taking on Denise Gomes. Man, I told you, you asked if I'd liked anything earlier this week. I told you Tisha Pennington's looking like a spot to me. And since then, I've just kind of backed off a little bit. I think about the Jessica Andrade fight. Andrade able to push a little bit more of a pace, land the more punishing shots. And Tisha's just getting up there in age. I think momentum-wise, Denise Gomes is going to, that would be who the UFC hopes to win. I think that she'll have an argument because she's going to land the bigger shots in the fight. And even though Tisha Pennington, notoriously tough and can take those shots, I'm worried that she's just not going to get the respect of Denise Gomes. I don't think that there's any potential for Denise to start grappling Tisha Pennington, which is the only the main difference between the Jessica Andrade fight. But I do expect her to push enough of a pace that optically it's just going to be tough for Tisha Pennington to win. We talked about possibly hitting the +3.5 on Pennington, but it's not out yet the last time that I checked, but I imagine that's super juiced. I'm not really interested in betting Tisha Pennington +3.5 at -180 or whatever the heck it is. To me, it's just a pass spot. Denise Gomes probably edges out a decision.
I think I'm going to go with Tisha Pennington, man. I think I'm going to outright pick her. There's a point in time where I'd be way more eager to play the line. But yeah, you touched on some of them, man. I think there's an 11-year age gap between the two of them. She's like 36 or something. She's had a kid now and always sort of had the backseat, toward the UFC career as far as her and Raquel. But, skill-wise, man, volume's going to be there. She's extremely fast. She's always in really good shape, great cardio, and a person who's always been really hard to take down and control. But on the Gomez side, it just feels like the timing's right for the 25-year-old who's making huge improvements to catch Tisha, who's probably on the tail end of her career 100%. And Gomez so much more physical, 90% of the finish upside here, When I just look at Gomez, man, I see a 25-year-old who has shown me she can lose to veterans like Loma, veterans like Angela Hill. She can still make mistakes. She can lose fights she's favored to win. And ultimately, man, like I told you, 65% of the time, 70% of the time, if this fight goes to the decision, I think Pennington's done more volume. I think Pennington's landed more than her. And so with grappling holding no value in the Apex, I don't know, man. This is another clear Pennington or pass for me. Maybe a small shot Pennington decision. But yeah, I'm going to outright go pick the veteran, the underdog, +150. Give me Raquel Pennington. Moving on up all the way to the heavyweight division, we got Josh Hokic taking on Max Jimenez. I really struggled to try to find much online about this Jimenez guy, many fights at all. Looks like he does a lot of grappling. I do see where he's got beat, knocked out by a 2-4 fighter. What the fights I did see, gas tank didn't look too impressive, looked super one-dimensional. And then on the Hokic side, I see a guy who I think's in way better shape, much more athletic, has the wrestling background and has the ability to get this fight down and get on top. And when he gets on top, he is pretty active, with his ground and pound and looking to finish fights, which I do like. So, yeah, I mean, I think Hokic is a clear deserving favorite here and probably finish this fight. I think both of them have the tendency to maybe slow down, but if they do, I still feel like Hokic's takedowns will be there and could gain control even in the slot fest. But I think Hokic probably finishes this fight under 1.5. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think that Jimenez being as good off of his back as he is, or just on the ground in general, I think it kind of works in his favor to extend this fight just because Josh is trying to get it to the mat. I think that Jimenez, in theory, could be able to ward off some of the ground and pound that Hokic is usually able to land against far inferior grapplers in the heavyweight division. This is somebody who I guess he doesn't have a grappling advantage, but he certainly has a wrestling advantage. So I could see there being some stalled moments with him on top. So I'm not looking to play it because I'm just not going to play a heavyweight over, but I would, say don't play the under because the writing's on the wall, in my opinion. So it's a pass for me. I think Josh should get it done. He's, not a likable person, but I think he's probably good for views. So I think the UFC is setting him up to get a win here. I just don't know if he's going to steamroll this dude who kind of lives on the ground. Stylistically, this seems like a fight that could hit the over. So Josh Hokic's the pick. I'm just not sure how he's going to get it done or if he's going to get it done inside the distance. Moving on to the bantamweight division, the women's bantamweight division, Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Jacqueline Cavalcante. Striker versus grappler here. And I think that Silva, even though she is primarily trying to get this fight to the ground, she, has good leg kicks. She hits pretty hard. And then she also has a advantage on the mat. So I think the line's a little unjustified. Cavalcante has been in some close bouts with, only okay competition. And I think that Mayra Bueno Silva is somebody who just recently fought for the belt. She's tough as nails, and under the right circumstances, she could wind up and look like a big favorite. Where I think Cavalcante is going to have trouble covering her price tag kind of any way you cut this fight.
Right.
So Marabuena Silva or pass. I might find myself on Marabuena Silva. Let's see. Yeah, plus 225. I mean, let's see. Yeah, plus 225 will probably get me there. I don't know how much more people are going to be hitting the Cavalcante side. Like I'm seeing minus 285 on her side. So if it continues and I could get like plus 250 on Marabuena Silva, my hands are tied. I will be placing at least a unit on her. But I think that this fight plays out closer than it's lined for sure.
Yeah, man. Silva's the one who's fought for a belt before. Clearly the more dangerous of the two. Probably more knockout power, definitely the more nasty sub game. Women's MMA fight at the end of the day. So, yeah, I don't hate it. I was wanting to bet Ketlin Vieira last week, and this kind of feels similar. It's just kind of where they at right now in their career. Cavalcante's won 7 in a row, where Marabuena Silva's lost 3 in a row. Cavalcante's 28, Bueno Silva's like 34. So on the Cavalcante side, man, I see a girl who I think is a bit more athletic, a lot faster, cleaner with her shots. It has really reliable volume, just tends to be a pretty decent minute winner. Her only issue is, I feel like all the big moments potentially would come from the Silva side. And, I don't really think the Cornoli or the fight with Nunes were splits, but it just kind of shows that the judges – really don't favor her style, I guess. And so a couple big moments could swing it. A couple takedowns or something could swing it. I don't see Cavalcante pressing the grappling to give Silva, the chance for the front chokes or anything. I see a lot of this just playing out at range where Cavalcante's, again, just the faster girl, more technical, more volume. So I'm on the Cavalcante side. I think Cavalcante hits decision at minus 200, but I mean, if you're forcing a money line play, I agree with you, man. It's 100% Bueno Silva or pass here.
I mean, just to back up my take on that, it's going to be a close fight. The line for Marabuena Silva to win 1 round at plus 3.5 is 290 points difference.
Yeah.
She's plus 225. Her plus 3.5 is minus 165. Like they know that she's at least going to wind up on top once, or land a punishing enough shot to swing around. So, yeah, I think it's money line or pass here because they're juicing the hell out of her winning 1 round, and that implies that it's going to be a close fight.
I agree, man. Men's featherweight, we got Jamal Emmers taking on Hyder Emil. I don't really know about what to do with this one, man. Emmers, huge experience edge, fought the really good competition for a long time. The bigger guy, definitely the better athlete of the two. And honestly, skill-wise, I think he's the better striker of the two. I think he's the better wrestler of the two. Jamal Emmers just kind of seems like the guy who can't put it together on fight night, man, and kind of likes a clean fight, doesn't like someone in his face, doesn't like someone who pushes a high pace. And that's what Emil brings to a fight. Emil is going to get in his face early. He's going to bring the pressure, the pace. He's going to put him up against the cage. And, he's not going to give Emmers his space to work. And I feel like he's going to wear on him. He's going to mix in some of these takedowns. And, I feel like Emil back half of this fight is a clear Emil side. So while I think the more talented MMA fighter might be the guy in Jamal Emmers at plus money, I feel like Emil's just not going to give him that space to be clean and to be work. So I'm on the Emil side. I'm definitely not going to bet him at chalk, but I think he tends to break Emmers down the stretch and maybe gets a round 3 finish. But ultimately I think Emil decision. Again, it's how I see this one going down, man. Thoughts?
I'm on the Emmers side here. I think Hyder Emil is somebody who's made a name off of coming out like a bat out of hell and really, jumping on people early. But coming off of his first loss, we see it time and time again. Fighters always react differently, and you don't know how he's going to react after getting knocked out for the first time in his career. And Jamal Emmers is not somebody that you want to let settle into a fight. So I tend to agree with the line movement or with the the initial line. And I think long term, you bet Emmers, who, like you said, is the better MMA fighter all around. And then you couple into the fact that Hyder Emil's coming off of his first professional loss. I think that it's a plus EV play to play Jamal Emmers here at plus 115 to plus 130. Let's see. Moving on to the main card opener, we have Marco Tulio versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Another line where I feel like there might be a little hype surrounding Marco Tulio Silva. I think that he's very good, but I think if he was fighting higher level of competition, he wouldn't be as what am I trying to say, as popular as he is now. Christian Leroy Duncan has been fighting some high caliber competition with guys like RoboCop specifically, who I think pushes a similar pace to Marco Tulio Silva. And then on top of it, mixes in his wrestling that kind of was able to negate some of the progress that Duncan was making in that fight. In this, I think that Duncan's going to make this close, and I think we're going to get an absolute barn burner. So I'm kind of looking at this as a coin flip fight and a big stepping stone for Tulio, or a big step up for Tulio Silva, and a fight where he's going to have to prove to me that it's not just cans that he can beat. He can beat some higher level competition, because Leroy Duncan is big for the division. He's fast. He's a good all around MMA fighter, and I think he's going to make him work for this win. So yeah, in a coin flip fight, I'm going to be taking Christian Leroy Duncan. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I'm on the other side. I think if Duncan were to pull this out, you're looking at Duncan's best win ultimately, man. His UFC wins to me really aren't that impressive. But I agree with you, man. I think he's a lot more technical striker on the feet. I just think maybe like Miles Johns just gets in his own way a little bit, man. Tries to be too pretty with things at times, can be low volume at times. And I saw somebody online say that he's more of an athlete than he is a fighter. And I kind of feel that, I think he's got all the athletic ability in the world, all the technical ability in the world. But when he steps in a cage, I don't really know, man. I don't know how much he can take it. And I feel like if this turns into a dog fight, a close fight, I think I can trust Tulio more. Tulio's going to be the one who's coming forward. He's got all the grappling upside here in my eyes. And so to me, he's the one that looks like has a better ceiling. He is so reckless, though, that, somebody like Duncan, who's that technical, who throws some tricky shots, may be able to land something on him. And it's big guys. I don't know. I'm not thrilled about a 2-1, a minus 185 on Tulio, especially when I'm pretty sure he opened up at plus money at like plus 120, plus 110. But yeah, I just see a higher ceiling and more paths to victory, and the ability to fight at a high pace and come forward where Duncan, kind of like Emmers, likes that space to work. And in the Apex, I don't think it favors him too much. So I do think the line's a little bit wide as far as how it could play out, but I am on the Tulio side here, man. I like him as a prospect in the middleweight division.
I think anybody would look good against Poteria and Trayshawn Gore. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I could say the same thing for the guy beating Eric Anders, Puliev, Ribeiro, Tulinian.
Fedorovich. But yeah.
I feel you. Moving down to 135, I got Ricky Simone taking on Hani Barcelos. This is one of the more higher level fights of the week, and I was kind of hoping that we'd see some Barcelos money come in, because I like the Ricky Simone side here. I think he's a bigger hitter of the two. I think at this point in their careers, he's got a much better gas tank of the two, and I think he's going to put a pace on Barcelos, back him up, land his takedowns. It may not be a ton of control, but if Barcelos is constantly having to work, yeah, I think Ricky's style could really grind him out and wear on him. Barcelos, we see him kind of getting hurt at this stage of his career as well, slows down in the high-paced fights and content to play off his back. And, the fights he's winning are against guys that ultimately I don't think are in the best stage of their career, or going out here and upsetting Peyton Talbot, landing takedowns and things that I don't think are successful against Ricky Simone. So, again, this is a line I was trying to monitor, hoping some Barcelos love would come in. I don't know how much meat there really is left on the Simone line, sitting at minus 175, but I think Simone might finish him ultimately, man. I really do. So I'm on the Ricky Simone side. I think Ricky Simone pace, pressure, TKO from top position, maybe in 2-3. Kind of how I see this one playing out.
Yeah, so I'm on the Ricky Simone side as well. But truth be told, I haven't heard anybody on the Raoni Barcelos line this week. It seems like Ricky Simone is a popular, parlay piece or just a straight bet, which is concerning because Raoni Barcelos, where Ricky Simone is likely to take this fight is kind of in Barcelos's world. On the ground, he's a complete handful. And, if his age was different, I think maybe this fight would be lined a little bit closer just because Simone's, most likely path to victory is taking it to the ground, where Raoni Barcelos usually does a good job of scrambling, finding his way to the back and wearing on people himself. So, yes, I agree. Ricky Simone is the pick for me, but I could talk myself out of not even getting on him at all this week. Moving up to the lightweight division, we have Ishmael Bonfim taking on Chris Taco Padilla. I like Bonfim minus 200 or better. I think he just absolutely works Padilla here. Padilla kind of doing better than he should, in my opinion. He's had a couple of favorable matchups in the UFC, and he's done well with what he's had. I went to that split decision with Jai Herbert in the last fight, which questionable, to be honest with you. And I don't think Ishmael is going to give him that opportunity to, pick and choose when he engages. I think that Bonfim will push a higher pace and ultimately drown him, just kind of work him enough to where he gets a unanimous decision. I think he wins more often than not. So I give you Ishmael Bonfim minus 200, even if it's a parlay piece.
Yeah, I faded Taco Padilla in his last 2 UFC fights. So maybe a little bit biased, but I thought he lost the Jai Herbert fight, man. And, in the Rong Zhu fight, I thought Rong Zhu was starting to back him up and get the better of those exchanges prior to that elbow land. And so I'm always super hesitant to jump to the other side, when I've seen things that have made me wanted to fade him in the past. I was kind of hoping you'd come in here on the Padilla side because I think I'm jumping sides, man. I think I'm on the Taco Padilla side at least at this number for me. I think Padilla is the money line side or pass and really is the one dog out of the two here. Bonfim, I don't think he likes to grapple, man. I think it wears on him. I think he gives up bad positions. I think he'd much rather strike here, and he might get that fight. He's pretty sharp on the feet. I think he's got a good calf kick, good solid jab. Padilla, not as technical, but just blends the game together really well, finds ways to win. I think he's got the superior gas tank of the two. I think he's got potential to land takedowns and get the back. And we've seen Bonfim, in my eyes, just ultimately quit before. And Taco Padilla just seems like a guy who's not going to quit, man. So if this fight were to extend and Bonfim's made to work, I could see him coming out here in round one looking like the dominant fighter. But I don't know if Bonfim has the ability to truly do that over 15 minutes against a guy who's feeling himself like Padilla, who's got the dog of Padilla. So, again, always hesitant to jump ship when I faded a guy, but I couldn't lay 2-1 on Bonfim here. So if that's your read, good luck to you. But we might be going head to head on that one there. At 170,
I've faded it.
You're good. Go ahead.
I was about to say I've faded Ishmael Bonfim before, but it's plus 275 Benoit Saint Denis. Chris Padilla is not that guy, and I think we're getting a good price tag because he's coming off yet another win or another loss because of the doctor stoppage, and we're kind of overlooking that he was able to outwork somebody like Vince Pichel, who's a workhorse of the division. I don't know, dude. I wish that you were on that one because he might be a parlay piece for me. So it is what it is, but
Doctor move forward. He quit. He quit on the stool. No. Muslim Salikov, Euros Medic at 170. Dude, both these guys consent to content to stand and bang. Both of them carry big power for the division, and honestly, both of them shown they can be hurt, they can be finished, and it's a fight I don't see going 15 minutes. At 41 years old, props to Muslim for 3 in a row, finishing these fights here. The Carlos Leal, sick finish. But just a few more negatives on his side, man. With the age, the size, the gas tank, I do think he's the less durable of the two. But Muslim Salikov's look good, man. And I don't know. Medic tends to get hurt in every fight. I know the Gilbert Urbina knockout, that's what you see. That looks good. But we can't forget him getting floored early in that fight, I'm not in love with the Medic side by no means. I think the dude's super fragile. His level of competition prior to the UFC is super poor. His wins in the UFC don't hold any weight at all. I just feel like at the range they're going to fight at, Muslim likes the kicking range and things. And with the size of Medic and stuff, I feel like it could favor Medic, who's a little bit younger, maybe a little bit faster. I don't know, man. I want to hear your breakdown before I kind of side here. You got any thoughts on this one?
Easy Medic spot, dude. I mean, yeah. I think he tears him up. I think we're getting a pretty favorable price tag. Yeah, I mean, like it sucks that for whatever reason, even though I don't think that Uros Medic is, a title challenger by any means, but he's always priced like it. And finally, we're getting at least a playable line at minus 160 against somebody who I think is kind of overperformed. One, at this point in his career, and two, in the last 3 fights that he's had. We've seen him fight superior strikers in Randy Brown, Nicholas Dalby, and Jing Liang, and he gets beaten by those guys. And I think that Uros Medic fits into that mold, and I think we're getting a pretty favorable price tag. So, this is a Medic spot, in my opinion. I hate that I'm still having to lay the juice on him, but whatever. I think he's the spot here. All right, moving on to the flyweight division. We have Matt Schnell taking on Joseph Morales. Morales came in off the Ultimate Fighter as a massive underdog in the finale against Alibi Idirius, and he was able to find the triangle choke in round 2. Kind of dominated from start to finish, and I think he's a force to be reckoned with. Just hearing other fighters' interviews talking about Joseph Morales, they're all pretty high on him and think that he has a lot of potential in the UFC. And Matt Schnell, although he's always subject to make a fight close and grind something out, I think that he's way over the hill. Just about anybody could knock him out. And one of those, Jimmy Flick's not the guy. So even though he was able to find the win over Jimmy Flick in his last one out, that might have been the only matchup that he could have where he's not getting chin checked. So give me Joseph Morales. I assume that it's going to be by submission just because that's how Morales gets most of his wins done. And we've seen Matt Schnell submitted a few times now. But I would not be surprised at all if Morales just throws a feeler punch out there, clocks Matt Schnell, and is able to jump on him and finish it from mount. So, I think Morales inside the distance, Joseph Morales money line. Minus 400 is pretty tough. So I'd try and find a different way to play it than the money line.
Yeah, I'll tell you how to play it, man. Joseph Morales inside the distance, minus 105 DraftKings. I locked it in right before we started. Believe it is. Yeah, Joseph Morales inside the distance, minus 105. My biggest regret, biggest misbet of 2025 was Joseph Morales last time out. Came on the podcast pretty much shouting from the rooftops how the line was extremely stupid, how this guy was the number 1 overall pick, how DC, everybody really liked him. Go out here, don't bet it. And dude looks like a minus 400 instead of the plus 300. Skill for skill here, I don't know if Morales really is like a minus 400 fighter, but I do think he's able to find his takedowns. I do think he's a better boxer. And when you got a flyweight in Matt Schnell who's 36 and finished 8 times, like you said, dude's clearly past it. Morales, when he was in the UFC the first time, he was only like 24 years old. So he's 31 this time, his second go around. The last 2 people that he beat on tough, Imanol Rodriguez, looked fantastic on Dana White Contender Series, got himself a contract. Eduardo Enrique, another guy the UFC brought back for the Contender Series, didn't get a contract, but another clear-cut win there. I think the two guys Morales has ultimately beat the last two times are better than the current form of Matt Schnell. So the only play I have right now, Joseph Morales inside the distance, probably a unit and a half, 2 units at minus 105, and I'm with you. I think Morales gets it done inside. Brings us to our main event at 170. We got Gabriel Bonfim taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown. Again, I said in the intro, not the biggest names. Both of them had a ton of success, though, lately, and a solid chance I think we see one of these guys going down. With Bonfim, you kind of know what you get, man. It's extremely good grappler, really good jiu-jitsu, and a huge opportunity to win round one and to finish the fight on the mat. Biggest issue is the dude can't keep it up for 15 minutes, can't even really keep it up for 7.5 minutes. I thought we were absolutely robbed of our Wonder Boy bet last time out. And I could kind of see the same thing, here. With Randy Brown, you got a guy who's much longer, much faster, the better athlete, has the height and reach advantage, big cardio advantage, and sure, he's probably going to have to survive an early round one. But I think if he gets out of round one, I don't know. I think the fight clearly goes in his favor. I think the fight's a 50-50 fight if we get out of round one at most. And so there's plenty of reasons for me to lean dog or pass and be on the Randy Brown side here. I also kind of was looking at the total. It's set at 2.5. And so, I feel like if you're playing the Bonfim at his big juice, you might as well just play the under 2.5 because that's 50 points better, and that encompasses what I think the way he wins. If this fight hits an over 2.5, I think Randy Brown's a clear side. So if you're on the Bonfim side, I think you should play an under 2.5 here, but I think it slips over. I like Randy Brown. I could honestly see it going to a full decision, but I think the boxing and things of Randy Brown's going to get it done in the later round. So give me Randy Brown, TKO, round 3, round 4. I like dog money.
Yeah, I like it. I've got Gabriel Bonfim to at least win the first 2. I think he's got more than one round in him. And Randy Brown, just what's upsetting for me to like the biggest red flag for me to not bet Randy Brown is just how he handles himself in fights. Plenty of times I've seen him and he just pisses me off the way he acts in there. He thinks that he's up a whole lot more, or thinks that, I don't know, that he has the ability to kind of goof off in the octagon or not take it as serious. And if he was just locked in, I think that he could be a much better fighter than his, record suggests. But yeah, man, I think if he can just withstand the early pressure from Gabriel Bonfim here, he could really run away with it. But this is a fight where I wouldn't be surprised if, we're 2-2 going into the 5th and, Rude Boy slips up doing something, some type of spinning kick or whatever, getting a kick caught and then getting on top of and not being able to work his way back to the feet in the 5th round and us losing like a split decision. So it's just a layoff spot for me. Yeah, I think that this is a really close fight. I think it probably slips to the over, and I'm not wanting to be on Randy Brown. So probably just lay off for me entirely. I'll go with Gabriel Bonfim just because I think there is the potential for him to finish inside the distance. And then on top of it, I think there's also potential for him to bank 2 rounds, lose 2 rounds, and then a toss-up 5th. So give me Bonfim, but I would have only bet him if this was minus 110 pick'em. I can't bet him in this spot right here.
Yeah, you might even be able to get better than plus 150 live on Randy Brown at some point in this fight because I do think Bonfim clearly wins the early portion of it with you. I agree, man. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. All 12 fights left at UFC Vegas, 111 this week. One of the best pay-per-views of the year next week, man. Madison Square Garden, we got UFC 322, welterweight strap up for grabs. We got Islam moving up, taking on JDM, and we got Weili Zhang moving up, taking on Valentina Shevchenko. Super ready to get into those fights, break those down for you. As always, we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.